Welcome to Launch Today, the podcast focused on what it takes to get your new business to $1 million or more in revenue. From marketing tactics to incredible guest interviews, we focus on sharing behind-the-scenes content from masters in their field. If you want to grow your startup or your business, don't miss today, because today's guest is a calm company advocate who transformed burnout into a thriving business with a built-in margin. Premium program helping overwhelmed business owners grow profits while working fewer hours. After experiencing burnout twice in his career, nope, I screwed that up. After asparagus, good start, Trevor. After experiencing burnout twice during his entrepreneurial journey, Shawn developed frameworks that have helped over 20,000 founders create more focused, profitable businesses with built-in time off. Shawn, thanks for coming on the show.
Trevor, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here.
I always ask my guests, why do you do what you do? But in your case, I think you lead with that why. You've discussed how you got burned out twice. But let me ask a little more specifically. So you got burned out twice and you didn't decide just to change your life. You decided to try and change other people's lives. Talk to me about why that became your mission.
Yeah, part of the big thing for me, I think the initial kickoff moment was I was working full-time hours, actually double. I was working about 70 to 80 hours a week inside of a large nonprofit. And I was younger, I was in my 20s. It was fun, it was cool, but my wife and I, we got pregnant and then we ended up having a miscarriage with our first pregnancy. And I've always looked back at that moment where for me, everything suddenly slowed down quite a bit. And it was like the first time that you watch The Matrix and that first bullet time scene is like on the roof, right? Yes, exactly. It's like, here come the bullets and everything suddenly goes slow and he can see these bullets like whizzing by. And that for me, like with the miscarriage and even just the pregnancy itself as well, like we were going to be parents, it really caused a lot of things to slow down for me. And I had the opportunity, I had that gift to assess how I was spending my time, what I was spending my time on, and realizing what I'm doing right now is not what I want to continue doing. And it gave me the courage to quit that and to leave and to start out on my own entrepreneurial journey. So I went into solopreneurship about 15 years ago, since 2011, that this all happened. But I brought a lot of that broken, toxic urgency, overwork, all those mindsets, all those habits. I just brought them home with me. So it wasn't, I learned them at that organization, but I brought them home with me, and it took me several years to unlearn them. And a big motivation for that for me was like, gosh, if I'm going to run my own business and if I'm going to be a business owner, I should also there's so much stress and pressure and so many things that come with it. I should also be able to take advantage of the freedom and the liberty and the autonomy and the agency that I have as a business owner as well. But yet I wasn't taking advantage of any of those. I was just living with all of the crud of it and none of the benefits. And so I really had to rethink how I ran my business, how I ran my own time. Then my wife and I, we got pregnant again. We now have 3 amazing boys, healthy boys at home. And I was like, I got to be a dad. I want to be present as a dad. That was a huge part of it for me. So that is the why that got me into this. And then just over the years of just different things and different messages and different products that we've done over the years, realizing the one that has resonated the most with our audience and with our customers and now clients has been around just managing your time with intention and creating that breathing room.
I think it is very easy for, particularly out of any culture, I find Americans are just willing to go into, if I just worked harder, this would all sort itself out. And you talk about margin only comes by design, but complexity and overwhelm comes naturally, right? And I think I know a bunch of Europeans. I used to live in Poland, and their willingness to just be like, it's noon, I'm going to shut my computer and go have lunch. Oh, did you want me? That's my lunch break. You can't have, I'm out. And the mind is so different. How do you keep that American hustle, but still think about margin, not just money margin, because that's a big one that people also get wrong is I could work, I run my own business, right? Obviously, we're here, I own Crowd Tamers. I could work for somebody else and make $250,000 a year on salary pretty easily. But with that would come, I've lost my time margin, right? I've traded money margin for time margin. How do you keep that American hustle, but still think about how do I put in that space, that margin for my life to be my life?
Oh man, I love this. And here, in my experience, Trevor, basically the thing is when you decide to prioritize margin and breathing room as being important. And so margin is basically, you could define it. There's a book on this. It's literally, the book is called Margin. It's by Dr. Richard Swenson. And so a lot of the stuff that I've gleaned has been from that book and I'm putting it into practice over the last 15 years. And so margin is defined as the space between what you're carrying and then where your limit is. So the space between your load and then where the boundary is of now I'm at the limit and beyond this is overwhelm, burnout, breaking point. And so by intentionally going, I am going to maintain a space there. I'm going to have white space in between where my limit is and then what I'm actually carrying. And so by doing that, if you go, this is my hard limit, for example, for myself, I aim to work, I take off 9 weeks of vacation every year. We have a sabbatical every 8 weeks.
Wow, that's a big chunk.
We take a week off and we repeat this. And so there is this intentional kind of margin first approach, and that adds up to about 9 weeks of vacation because we do a double in the fall or double in that Christmas time and a double in the summer. So we get 9 weeks, and that forces us then in the space we do have available. Now we've got to be hyper focused and we've got to get the right things done. And so it forces us to make clear decisions about what we're going to work on. It forces us to stay on track. And it's just this little forcing function that allows you to get, quote unquote, the American hustle, which I hate that idea. But the idea of, I'm not going to be lazy. I'm not lethargic. I am going to be focused and diligent, and actually by being intentional to have these breaks and this white space within the business, it forces me now to get creative and be on track with accomplishing the goals that we want to.
I got you. There is a deep rooted in the American psyche, maybe uniquely, although maybe not, is the Protestants arrive and they bring with them the theory of the elect, right? If you are favored by God, then all things prosper. And so if I'm not prospering, it must be because I am not blessed from above. So then I have to make sure that people see that I am prospering, or else then they know I must be a bad person because I'm not blessed. And it all fits into this weird, it's the American mindset, right? They call it the prosperity gospel, right? Mm-hmm. And it ends up with, I think we're all a little broken in the head in that regard, because you must be successful to be virtuous somehow. And so as a result, whatever is required to do to be virtuous, you must do. And that's why I think we get this disconnect in the EU where they're like, yeah, I'll work 35 hours a week. That's a fair amount of my time.
Yeah.
And then you find people who are paid, the jump when you go from, hey, I'm a cashier, I'm making $11 an hour. And now, I'm a manager, I'm making 20, but I'm working 85-hour weeks. I'm actually being paid less. And people don't make that jump because they're willing to burn themselves through. It's easy as an entrepreneur, and I'm guilty of this. I'm sure perhaps you have been from time to time too. Maybe you better control it, right? Is to say, look, my company just needs this much more from me, and then we'll turn a corner, right? If I just do a little more, but then you look at, great, what's my hourly comp? I'm actually one of the worst paid members of my team, especially once you account for cost of living, because I've got team members in Colombia and India and in Ukraine and in Spain. And any of them on hourly comp adjusted for cost of living, they probably earn more than I do. Why am I doing it wrong? How do I get a calmer company built around what I'm doing so that as a founder, I don't feel like, man, all these guys who I'm paying and who do good work, that's why I'm paying them, they're all slacking off because I work harder than all of them. How do you get the mentality isn't that they're slacking off because they made a margin, but rather maybe I should do that too.
Yeah. I think a huge part of it is, like you said, so having to decouple from that quote unquote prosperity gospel mindset that says, if I am successful, then I am a good person. I am virtuous. I am morally approved by God, whatever. First of all, where is the definition of success in that regard? What is it, right? Is it how much money is in my bank account? Is it how healthy I am? Sahil Bloom, his book, The 5 Types of Wealth, has broken this open more mainstream. It's some phenomenal concepts that they're not new, but they're written in a fresh way, realizing there is so much more to quote unquote success or wealth beyond just the money in the bank account. And actually, for most of us, when suddenly one of the other areas of life suddenly has a crisis mode, you're like, oh, I would trade everything in the bank account for health or wealth in this other area, my kids or my wife or my own health or my own inner peace, like physical health as well as just the emotional side. And so there's these other areas that are also so important. And we see the overworking, overwhelmed, very busy entrepreneur who is pursuing finances at the cost of almost everything else. And there was the book, you're probably familiar with it, Bonnie Ware's. She was a hospice nurse, and she wrote a book on the 5 regrets of the dying.
Yes.
And very common book. A lot of people, most of these conversations end up referencing her stuff. But one of the biggest regrets that people had was, I wish I would have spent more time at home and less time in the office. And so, okay, if all of these people that were hustling and saying yes to every opportunity and trying to be quote unquote team players now look back and be like, I wish not. I regret those decisions. Yeah. It's okay. Then can I do the opposite? Can I do the inverse? What would happen if I spent more time at home than I did at the office? And then maybe evaluate once a year and see how I'm doing. Do I regret this? Yes or no? So just changing your own approach to what success looks like. And then how do you pull away from the need to be the hero or the need to be successful in one specific area is just by taking stock and figuring out, like when we coach with our clients, we have a program called Focus Like a Boss. And the goal is to help folks that are working way more than they want to get down to an appropriate amount of hours that makes sense for them. And for some people, that's 20 hours a week. For some people, it's 40, but no more. For me, it's like right around 30. I love working about 5 to 6 hours a day and being able to work a little bit in the morning, then have a long break for family time and for doing my workouts, and then leisurely getting ready and reading, and then a few more hours in the late morning, and then ending up early afternoon. And so that's a great time for me. And knowing what it is that you want in terms of hours is helpful for the target. But then the way that you get there is just by realizing I shouldn't be the hero of the business. How can this thing run more smoothly? How can it run more efficiently? And what are all the quote unquote like shiny objects that we are chasing that actually aren't adding up? They're not helpful for me to be spending my time on. And maybe they're also not even helpful for the growth of the business because there's this lack of clarity. So it really just comes down to that clarity of what is working in the business. How should I be spending my time? And that will remove a lot of just the extra stuff that you think is so important that you're working. You're just filling your hours with this stuff. You're chasing it. You're on this treadmill, but it's not adding up because there's no traction there because it's not actually contributing to what works for the business.
There are 2 sayings I remember a lot. I have three kids as well. One of them is the only people who will remember that you stayed late at the office are your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't look good when that is the case. And I teach for founders all over the world. I run with Founder Institute, or I'll do with CXL Marketing, or whatever, other organizations. And I will do one evening a month, at most, where it is like, hey, because they're in a different time zone, hey, do a 7 p.m. Like, come out to your office, do a 2 or 3 hour workshop, then go back to your life. One evening a month is the most I will do, and most months I don't even do that. Because, I want to be like 5 p.m. I clock out.
Mm-hmm.
I might log back in at 9 and do some prep for the next day, right? Once the kids are in bed. But no, I'm quite rigid. And likewise in the morning, like you, 7 a.m., got to get the kids up, got to get the kids fed, got to get them off to breakfast, get them off done like at 9 a.m., then finally I can sit back down again. Maybe 8:45, sit back down again and be like, hey, it's done. Right, and that was when I had my first child, my son, he's now almost 10. It was more, I had a job and I was a father. Just one kid, that's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly when you have one who's young. When he's 18 months old, he's basically a potato. There's not much that goes on there.
Yep.
But once I had my twin daughters, well, my son was almost 4, and I'm like, now there's 3, and there's twins, which means it's just an endless parade of mouth to butt. That's all you do.
Yep.
I went, okay, I'm a dad, but you got to have a job to keep putting food in the front of the mouth to butt chain. That forced a reevaluation for me, as well as I think all around that same time I was in the ICU for 3 weeks. And because I'm guessing COVID-18, like it looked like COVID, but it was the year before COVID became a thing. And no one knew why I was dying of pneumonia. They're like, this dude is 37, runs half marathons, and is in the hospital nearly dead with pneumonia? This is real weird. So anyway, that forced that frame shift, right? I think some people are lucky enough to get that frame shift where you look at it and you just go, all right, whether it's mortality, I think children do bring mortality into the discussion because you've now got the next generation, which means you can now see I have to provide for this person in case a bus hits me tomorrow. Some folks have that frame. If you haven't yet had the reframe of you're in the ICU for 3 weeks or you've got kids coming into your life that make you go, oh, is the 70-hour week what I really want? How do you encourage an entrepreneur, maybe one who's only 22, 25, to say, wait a minute, I could build something calmer now if I wanted to? How do you encourage that willingness to address which margin you're optimizing for before you've had a near-death experience or a kid or some other big life event?
I think a lot of folks, some people want to work 80 hours a week. And I think, honestly, if you're in your early 20s and you don't have kids, and maybe you don't have a wife either or a spouse either, go for it. Working and building something and learning a trade and learning your skills and making decisions and all of that, absolutely, that is a way better use of your time than just goofing around and playing video games.
Fair enough.
So go for it. But that will not sustain. And eventually you'll realize, okay, my ability to just do more, be more, give more is going to help with the escape velocity of getting the rocket ship off the ground, but you can't maintain that long term, especially so if you want to start having that calmer lifestyle with kids or being able to travel or being able to step away from the business and not having everything shut down. So there are then skills that you have to learn to continue making money while you sleep or continue making money while you change diapers or whatever it is. And I work with folks that are in that point where they're going, okay, yeah, my business is making a lot of money and I hate it. And I would rather help, get me out of here is usually where I'm at. And so there is already the self-realization of people going, this can't continue on. I am sick and tired of this. Or I will work with folks that are going, man, I know that there's a breakthrough coming in the business. I just need the breakthrough. And they haven't connected the dots that the problem is you. And there is no breakthrough because you have tethered yourself to this business or vice versa. And you can only go so fast and so far. And so there's a direct 1-to-1 ratio now for your speed and the business's speed. Sure. So what we'll do is we start with clarity of figuring out what do you actually want to do with your life. And a lot of folks haven't answered that question. If ever, maybe it's been 5 or 10 years since they started the business. Whatever inciting incident that they had that sent them into entrepreneurship, or a lot of folks, it's freelancing. They start as a freelancer and then that turns into an accidental business. Or they start as just coaching on the side and now suddenly they've got a lot of clients, or they're trying to stop trading their time for money, whatever. But they haven't thought about what they want to do with their life. Or they haven't thought about what they want to do with their business in 5 or 10 years, if ever. And so we just start with that. And we go through this whole process of just asking some questions to get clear about not just the business and where you want it to go, but for yourself as the owner, as a mom or as a dad, as a parent, as a spouse. is as a person in society, as who you are yourself, going like, where do I want my own life to go? And what does that look like? And just started to answer some of those questions. And that is usually where a lot of the light bulb moments start to happen. And you begin to look at, okay, this is the picture of what I want my life to be like. And then I come over here and I look at what my calendar actually says, and I realize these two are on another planet. It's not even the same person.
Yeah.
And everyone goes home and they have a good cry and like just mourn the fact that I am building a life that I do not want to live in anymore. But then they'll come back the next day and they're like, holy cow, let's do this. How do I get from, I'm over here, I want to get to this other one of where I'm actually looking for. And that's where all the magic starts to happen. So that's usually how you get people to figure it out. They're already feeling some of that burnout. And then you just help them paint the picture of what they actually want for their future life. And it's like, great. And then the rest is so easy from there. It's surprisingly easy.
I think this transitions nicely into my next question, which is, you've mentioned you can eliminate like 90% of busy work with your 4 focus method. Talk to me about those 4 focus areas and how this helps founders drop the busy work and bring calmness and clarity.
Yeah. So the 4 focus method, this is a flywheel of healthy productivity. So I'll just explain each of the steps briefly and then talk about why it contributes to removing busy work. So the first step of the flywheel is what we just talked about. It's identifying what matters. And it can be on a high level, a 30,000 foot view of identifying the big picture for yourself and your goals in your life, down to the ground level of identifying what's the most important task that I need to do today. And those ideally are going to be in alignment. So that's the first step. You've got to identify what matters. And then the second step is to plan for it. And there's a lot of science and research behind this. James Clear, in his book, he calls it an implementation intention. And just the idea behind this is that you're going, this is the thing that matters most, but also this is when I'm going to do it. And if there are any sort of steps necessary or pre-work that is required, then I'll do this as well. And when you do some of these basic implementation intentions, a little bit of a plan, then you're 3 times more likely to actually follow through. And I'm sure you know, this is relatively common productivity advice. And so then the third step is to actually show up and do it, right? So you have to do it. If you're not actually showing up and doing the thing you said you're going to do, now you're just procrastinating, you're putting it off, right? And so that's where the vast majority of busy work happens, is avoiding the important work and doing something else instead. And then assuming that you did what you said you were going to, the fourth step now is to celebrate and to recognize the progress that you followed through on. And Teresa Amabile has a book called The Progress Principle. And Sean Achor has a book called The Happiness Advantage. And they both go into some different sides of just the neuroscience and the brain science behind what happens when you recognize your progress and when you celebrate it and you just take a moment to actually review. Hey, I did what I said I was going to do. And Trevor, you've got kids, so you know this. Whatever gets rewarded is what will get repeated.
Yes.
And we're the same way, right? As no matter how type A or how capable I am as a business owner, etc., I still will repeat the things that get rewarded in my life. And so
I think so many founders are bad at exactly that. Like, I have a channel in Slack for my team, right? Anytime any customer says something good about any of my team members, because I record all my calls, I want to grab the clip and I'll throw it in. I'll be like, look, here's this client saying, hey, Daniela was awesome to work with. Where did you hire her? Where can I find more people like her? And I'm like, you may not hire Daniela. She's mine. Well, like these sorts of things. But I did that intentionally because I realized it had been like a year since I told any team member good work. And I went, that's not like with my kids every day. It's, hey, you put the dishes away. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. They're like 6 and 10. This is, for a 15-year-old, that's a bit much. But for a 6-year-old, wow, you put the dishes up. Thanks so much. That's appropriate. And then I had done it for my team. And before I had kids, I don't think I hardly ever said to my team members, good job. I'm like, you did the thing I paid you for. Congratulations.
Don Draper, right? That's what the money's for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So those are the 4 focuses. Okay. I think
So
the hard,
yeah,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
identify, plan, act, and celebrate.
And
These are the
celebrate.
4 steps. And when you've done those and you actually follow through on, it's where basically the busy work gets eliminated, because you actually, instead of just reactively reacting to whatever's coming your way, you're being intentional, and you know what needs to be done to actually grow your business, what needs to be done to grow in any other area of your life that matters to you. You have your plan in place for when you're going to do it, so you're more likely to actually follow through. Then you do show up. Then by celebrating and recognizing that progress, you're reinforcing that positive behavior. And so it makes it easier to continue to identify those important things.
So you have talked about when founders work less, they will often make more, which seems counterintuitive, although not specifically because of this call was coming up. But I had a chat with my team members today. We have a client in our agency that is probably going to leave the agency, and it's almost entirely because I was a blocker on an issue. And we went 2 weeks without resolving the issue because I was doing 100 other things and not paying attention to the important one. But this 100%, if the team had been empowered, and a big part of it was I hadn't trained the team how to do a new thing. Because finding the time to do the training, there you go. And if they had been trained, the client would be happy. They would not be leaving. And I have a one-to-one today where I'm like, if I wasn't in the way, that's whatever, 2 or 3K a month in more revenue that I would have, and I'm not going to.
That's a perfect example. Yeah.
Perfect example. But let me ask you for some other ones other than Trevor is bad at being a manager. Some other ones about how founders can lose the fear that working less means earning less.
Yeah. It's sometimes you just dive in and you discover it for yourself. Oh, working less means earning more. Or working less sometimes means at least still earning the same. That was how it worked for me. So in 2017, when we first started implementing our sabbatical structure, where we have that 1 week off every other month, we take the break. And I was like, can we just make the same amount of money this year that we did last year, but with 4 times the amount of time off for the team? And it was just me. I had just one full-time person working for me at the time. So it was just 2 of us. And that was just the initial thing. Can we take a lot more time off and still make the same amount of money? It was just a hypothesis. And it's like, we did great. Like basically the year, I think we grew 10% year over year. I was like, hey, that's awesome. And this was great. Having a week-long vacation every other month was pretty phenomenal. So a lot of it is just experimenting and testing. You don't have to commit to this huge long-term commitment. You could go, I'm just going to, not only am I going to take a week off in the next 3 to 5 weeks, pick a time and take some time off, I'm also going to schedule a week off in 90 days from now as well. That feels like way too soon, but I'm going to go ahead and schedule it. And then it's that forcing function. Trevor, if you had taken time off during that 2 weeks, instead of being the blocker, you would have had to empower your team for how to handle that client. Cause you would have been thinking, I'm going to be out of town. I won't be on the office. They've got to handle it for me. And so it would have forced you to do that. And then you could have been gone. The client still would have been there, and you would have handed the next thing off to your team and empowered it. So sometimes it's which came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know. Just by choosing to take time off, you begin to discover that it's not so scary. And then the other thing that actually contributes to it, like you said, you stop being the blocker. So you're empowering your team. You're forced to be more efficient. You're forced to get systems in place. You're also forced to not dink around on dumb stuff. Like, I've only got so much time. I got to write this sales page, or I have to land this client, or I have to write this email campaign, or I have to do this new batch of ads, whatever it is, that the business doesn't go forward without these things. And I'm about to leave the office. I have to get these things done. It forces you, it puts a little urgency, but healthy urgency.
So I think you've identified a common thing, which is founders, CEOs, the senior leader of relatively small teams, because most entrepreneurs, they run a company of fewer than 20 people. They fall into these time traps of doing the thing that is not the thing. There are 2 frameworks I like to use to think about what is the thing. There's Eisenhower matrix, super well known. And then I have my own little variant of ICE matrix, which I call PIER, P-I-E-R, for priority, importance, effort, and result. Either way is how do I try and force a system into my list is 50 things long. I have time to do 4 things today. What do I do?
Yeah.
What do you like for a method to help you stack rank of all the thoughts I have in my head? Which are the ones I do today?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the ICE method. I've never heard peer, but I love
That's
that.
my invention, so
Yeah.
no, you wouldn't have.
Oh, okay.
What I do is basically I have it's a scale of 1 to 5, right? So ICE I think is 1 to 5 as well.
Yep.
Importance, effort, and result, right? And then I like to add priority, so I can put my thumb on the scale and say, but I want to do this first.
Yep. Yep.
And so priority is a scale of 1 to 6 also. So I have a little bit extra weight there. Oh, this is the thing I'm interested in right now.
Yeah.
But if it's not important, I still don't get to do it.
Yeah.
So I've got the kind of the leveling there. But it's basically ICE with a little bit extra spin because with, I don't know, short attention span comes, I want to focus on the thing that interests me now.
It comes in the fact that us as the business owners make a lot of emotional decisions. And so you can account for it. You can be like,
Exactly.
I want to do this. I like that.
I want to do this, yeah.
I really like that. So we do something similar. And the way that we make decisions is, so we have every other month, we're taking that week off. So the week before we take vacation, we have what's called a retrospective and a planning week. And we have 2 meeting days where we'll have a half day of meeting and we will review all of the work that we just did over the previous 7 weeks. And the projects that we were focused on, the milestones that we hit, the things, what did we ship, what did we not ship that we said we were going to, what's the pulse for our community membership, et cetera. It's just kind of review everything. And then we say, okay, knowing what we know and where we're at, what are we going to do next? And so we will have a list of ideas or projects, but then also just every couple of months, your business, it's just a little different. Things have evolved. You've learned something new. You read a new book or you saw some inspiring thing on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever. And so you have these other ideas of stuff that you want to do. And so we revisit that. And then we will, as a team, decide what is the most important stuff that we're going to do during our next work cycle, which is over the next 8 weeks once we come back from our vacation. And so we'll decide as a team. And then ideally, those are going to line up with what's the big overarching goal for the business this year? What's the metric that we have related to like community member access or recurring revenue on this side or sales of this coaching program over here, or whatever it is? Like, what are we trying to do that we're focusing on? And we'll have the big picture. Each person has their own number that they're in charge of that flows up into that. And so the projects that we're picking will match those other decisions that we've made. And one of the biggest ways that you don't sabotage this is by just making emotional decisions or just whatever you feel like doing in the moment, but paying attention to the goals and the directions that you've set, and then just keeping your word and not getting too bored about it. Or if you do get bored, suck it up. And that's what you just got to keep showing up anyways, because that's how the business will grow, is through consistency. So for my matrix personally, the way that I choose what I'm working on is it's very clear what projects I'm contributing to that I'm responsible for. And well, actually, I'm not ever responsible for any projects in particular. Like, I'm never the project owner. Someone on my team is always the project owner. So that way they can bug me, because in typical founder fashion, like, I'm usually my head somewhere else and I'm not paying attention to the project milestones or whatever. And so I'm the annoying boss that like my team has to bug and remind me to do the thing by tomorrow, which is fine. Like, we're clear. We're on the same page with that and we work very well together. But I'm not responsible for the projects, because otherwise stuff I would be the blocker. So for me, it's working on the tasks that are related to the projects I'm part of, that I'm contributing to. Like, if I'm doing the sales copy, or if I'm helping map out just the customer research and what the new sales page is going to look like for this thing, or if I'm delivering some of our group coaching stuff, I'll do the high ticket group coaching still myself. Or I'm the talent for our ad creatives, whatever. That's now a new job description for founders, but it is what it is. So these are the things that I have to do. And I know how they roll up into the goals that we have for the business. So for myself, there's very clear tasks that I know that I'm responsible for because of the projects that I'm working on right now. And then we'll take a sabbatical break. We'll come back from that vacation and I'll have a new set of responsibilities. They might be the same as the last time, or we might have new projects that we're working on. And so I have something else that I'm in charge of. And then I just have a dedicated time every day that I work on that stuff. And that's kind of how it all shakes out.
Okay. So with a calm company, and you've got your distributing authority out, that's important, I think, for any founder to not lose their mind. How do you get people out of the urgency trap without losing the fact that you do have to keep up the tempo to deliver? This is a job, you are paid, you have to stay on focus, but the urgency trap is there's always something noisy now. And how do you get your team members to navigate that problem? And you as CEO, sure, you're the experienced gray hair, right? You should know how to do this. How do you get team members to also do the same?
I have found that if you have A players, they're talented, they're motivated, they can manage themselves. The way that you keep them motivated is by giving them clarity and getting out of their way. You don't need to create urgency for people who are already hard workers, who are reliable. They will get the job done. They can set their own timeline, they can set their own deadlines, they can manage their own workload. And if I've given clarity that says this is what matters most for the business, this is what we're trying to build, and then we as a team all agree this is the next project we're going to take on that will move us towards the big business goal, then I go, great, we're all in agreement here. I'm not barking down orders. We're working, we're talking together as a team. I'm listening to their feedback. They're giving input and ideas. When I have an idea, I don't just steamroll it. I ask for feedback. What do you think? Is this possible? How would you guys do this differently? Are we in agreement to take this on? Yes or no? And so when there's a healthy company culture there that honors their input, and then I've provided the clarity, okay, yes, this is what we're doing. We're all in agreement. Great. And then I shut up and I don't come in with new ideas. And I don't say, hey, I know we all committed to do this thing yesterday. I have something new that's even going to be better. And then I come in the next day and say, okay, actually, no, this other new thing, right?
I've had those bosses. I hated them.
Oh, I have been that boss. I was that boss to myself. Even in the early days, it was just me. And so when you have rock star employees, all you need to give them is clarity and then space. And they will do the job. They can manage themselves. And if they can't, then find someone else. I know that's easier said than done. And I sometimes feel like I've hit the hiring jackpot. I just have an amazing team, and all the people I've worked with over the last 15 years have just been a dream to work with, amazing people. And I found that if you just tell them what is expected and the direction that we're going or what it looks like for them to win, and then you can get out of their way and they can come and ask you for help and resources and whatever, and you provide that. But that should be your job as the boss, is to point them in the right direction and then give them the resources that they need to succeed, without having to be at their back, creating urgency and creating motivation, leading them forward rather than just letting them do it on their own.
That's such a different way of managing than it used to be. You think of how they talk about management and you read the books from the 70s. And it is very much like your employees are just looking for ways to screw up. You have to be the one there with the over them managing, because I think it was the difference from applying the conveyor belt type of, hey, all you have to do is put this bolt on 8,000 times a day, and we moved into knowledge work now, and I think it is super different.
For sure. Yeah, my advice of if you just give your employees clarity and they'll take care of the rest, that isn't going to apply if you own a restaurant or if you own a coffee shop. If you have a Chipotle franchise, yeah, it's gonna be different. There will have to be, because you're dealing with, it's a completely different setup. But at least in my context of doing client work and running community and coaching and retreats and having a small team, and we do knowledge work, it's a different approach.
All right, so let me ask you one final question, if I may. You can probably tell from my backdrop behind me, I love a good book. I can tell from your backdrop behind you, you love a good book. What's a book that you recommend a founder reads to really open their mind up to what they could be doing as opposed to what they're doing now?
I would say the most influential business book that I've ever read is by Derek Sivers, and it's called Anything You Want.
I read it, yeah.
And it's a phenomenal book. You can read it over your lunch break. It's short and
yeah.
easy. And it just talks about that if you have a business, you get to do whatever you want, and for better or for worse. And so it just opened up my mind to be like, oh, yeah, like I can have fun with this. I can do interesting things. I can find new ways to make money. And it just helped me take more agency over my business and trying to build something that was delightful for myself, as well as for my team, as well as for our customers and clients. So that's one that it's probably my most gifted book over the last 15 years has been Anything You Want by Derek Sivers.
I always like to think of a recommendation that's somewhat in the same spirit as a podcast guest book. I'll offer a weird one, but it makes sense. So Strunk and White's Guide to Style is not your usual choice as a business book. But two things. One, I think if you're working in the hopes of a calmer company, clarity of communication is number one, the most important.
Yep.
But the other thing is Strunk and White's Guide to Style really drives you into a structured approach to language. And forcing that structure into how you think and how you write also puts structure everywhere else. Mm-hmm. And in the era of agentic AI, I did not know that having been raised the child of 2 English doctorates would be a benefit to me. But the fact that I have such precision with language when I want to means I can give precisely the right words to pick your agent with AI, and it will then produce a sensible result and not, what are you doing? That's not what I asked for. So if you want to improve your clarity to people, or for that matter, to AI, which agentic AI kind of looks like a junior employee these days, get better at writing. Focus on that guide to style.
That's a huge one. Yeah, I read that 15 years ago, and phenomenal book. I think I've got it sitting over here too.
I've got this bookshelf, the one in my house I've got. This is actually, these are all National Geographics, and then up here is the complete encyclopedia. And I have from 1949 to 2024, almost every single, I'm missing like 5 issues, which is my own, the completionist brain in me is just 5 issues. But yeah, all of them. And it's great recently I was doing for a client a brand pack. And I'm like, all right, I got to think of logos for these folks. Right. I'm old enough, I still do logos by hand. Logos for these folks. And then it's great to be able to go, hey, why don't you go look back in 1954 and just see, like, give me some ads, some logos, think about what people were doing. How are they talking about things? And also, it's fun to see how the language changed. One of my favorite examples of this ad doesn't mean the same thing that it used to is this Irish tourism ad.
The gayest of Irish festivals.
Which, in 1956, that's something different. I think they should bring that back, but they'll get a different crowd now than they did back in the 50s with that. Yeah, anyway, let me ask you, Shawn, people see this, they want to know more about you, they want to know more about Calmer Company Lifestyle and Blanc Media. Where do they find you online?
Focuslikeaboss.com.
There you go. Delivered with clarity and focus itself. Thank you so much for your time today, Shawn. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe this video, this channel, this wherever you happen to consume this piece of content. Every week, we have more great insights from people like Shawn. See you guys next week.
Thanks, Trevor.